Hi, I just wanted to share with you quickly a few things around this documentary that I watched this week, The Mask You Live In by the Representation Project, which just really deeply affected me. And I thought it's so worthwhile watching, so I wanted to encourage you to watch it, check it out by sharing a few things around it. It is around, well, it depicts the concept of masculinity in America and looks at how language and media representations really come to feed into what is seen as masculine and, being a real man. And it exposed masculinity as a mask that men and boys feel they have to wear in order to be socially accepted, which is really interesting. Now, a few particular things that stayed with me were, for example, the fact that one psychologist or educator, don't remember, pointed out how the easiest and surest way of starting a fight on a playground is by simply asking one question. Can you guess what that would be? Well, you simply have to ask, who's a sissy around here? And no one will want to, be a sissy on the playground and instantly point fingers at other people. And the hierarchy on the playground will become clear. And well, especially boys will reject that label very, very strongly. And it just shows how the rejection of the feminine starts out at such an early age, which is, really quite horrifying. Another point was around how the vocabulary around emotions and feelings starts to disappear for men, young boys around their teenager years. And this is the time where the feeling of loneliness and often depression starts to creep in and become part of their day-to-day moving forward. And it just shows how masculinity in that narrow concept, how the prevalent definition of masculinity that pushes aside vulnerabilities and emotions only, is unhealthy really, and is very imprisoning for men within themselves. Another thing that stood out to me was a rather scary and disturbing statistic that said that around a third of college men would be willing to rape if they knew they wouldn't get caught. Now, I looked a bit further into that statistic, and the truth is that actually it's 31% of college men that would be willing to force a woman to do something sexually that they wouldn't want to do, versus I think 13% that would be willing to rape a woman if they knew they would get away with it. So the difference in how this has been interpreted is down to the fact that actually it was these two questions and not just one, and also a scale from 1 to 5 that guys had to answer on. So it's probably an exaggeration, I guess, that 1 in 3 men would rape if they got away with it. But still, 31% would do something sexually to a woman that she wouldn't want, and 13% would do the rape as well. I think that's bad enough. And there are lots of other statistics out there, like, for example, the fact that 60% of rape cases go unreported. So we don't really even know, or we do know that there are many more cases of rape and sexual assault than are actually officially reported. So there are enough reasons that show how the current concept of masculinity comes with a dehumanization of both men and women. Men, because the human aspect of vulnerability and emotions is rejected and pushed aside, and only anger maybe is allowed. Other than that, men need to be in control, be strong, dominate, etc. And interestingly, women are being dehumanized as, well, existing for men. And these are not my words, but the words of a guy who appeared in the documentary. So the dehumanization of women appears to be integral to the definition of being a man, which is quite something. Another thing that deeply affected me were the prisoners that appeared in the documentary. They were reflecting on how their understanding of what it means to be a real man got them to a bad place in life, aka prison. And it's really interesting because it's only at the very end of the documentary that you learn that these prisoners have been convicted of murder. And as part of their rehabilitation, they are reflecting on their their understanding of masculinity and how that affected and served them or not. It's really cleverly done, because normally when you hear of murderers, you would probably not have much compassion and empathy. But in this documentary, when they were speaking, telling you about their background before you knew what they had been convicted for, you just would feel, I felt so much compassion and empathy for these people. And just seeing them as human beings who actually reflected back as well on and analyzed what led them to do those actions, you would normally not link that with a murderer. So that was really interesting. On a positive note, as part of the documentary, there were lots of great men, educators, psychologists, and young boys that deconstructed and showed how limiting the current prevalent concept of masculinity is. And I was really impressed with especially the young boys taking part in those conversations without feeling threatened by that, but instead recognizing the potential of liberation for themselves and for having better, healthier interactions with others, both men and women in particular. So maybe there is hope, and I would want to encourage you to not only watch the documentary but also have these sort of conversations in your circles. And I want to leave you with a few questions for that. So first of all, I'd like you to think about, what is masculinity to you? Okay, what constitutes manhood? What is a real man for you? And secondly, try to think back, where do these ideas come from? And when did you get them? Thirdly, just think, do you believe that that concept of masculinity is healthy and, helps men to have well-being and effectively communicate with others? If not, the fourth question I'm going to leave you with is, what from that concept of masculinity do you think needs to be challenged? And how can we do that in society? Have a good one. See you next time at Conscious Nuggets.